The gold foil lettering on the invitation mocked me as I traced my finger over the embossed names. Hallie and Stefan. The ampersand between their names felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I should have thrown it away the moment it arrived. Instead, I'd kept it on my kitchen counter for weeks, letting it taunt me every morning as I made coffee. Some masochistic part of me needed the daily reminder of what I'd lost. "You're sure about this, Lexi?" Fatima's voice crackled through my phone speaker as I applied mascara, my hand trembling slightly. "Nobody would blame you for backing out." "I'm not backing out." I steadied my wrist, determined not to smudge. "I've been planning this for months." What I didn't tell Fatima was that I wasn't actually invited as a guest. No, Hallie had asked me to coordinate her wedding. My best friend of 15 years was marrying my ex-fiancé and wanted me to make sure their special day went perfectly. And I'd said yes. The autumn air bit at my cheeks as I stepped out of my car at the Rosewood estate. October in New England painted the landscape in fiery oranges and reds that matched the slow burn of rage I'd been nursing. The venue was stunning, a historic mansion with sprawling gardens that Hallie had always dreamed of. I knew because we'd planned our fantasy weddings together since college. I clutched my event planner binder to my chest like armor and marched toward the service entrance. Staff bustled around, arranging flowers and adjusting table settings. No one questioned my presence. I belonged here, just not in the way I'd once imagined. "Lexi, thank God you're here." Nicole appeared beside me, her event coordinator badge matching mine. We'd worked together at several functions before, but she had no idea about my history with the happy couple. "The florist delivered peonies instead of garden roses, and the bride is about to have a meltdown." "Where is she?" I asked, my voice impressively steady. "Bridal suite, second floor, but fair warning, she's on edge." I nodded and headed for the stairs, each step heavier than the last. This was the moment I'd rehearsed countless times in my head, but nothing prepared me for the reality of it. The door to the bridal suite was cracked open. I could hear Hallie's voice before I saw her. "I don't care what it takes, just fix it. This is my wedding day." I knocked softly and pushed the door open. And there she was, my former best friend, wrapped in a silk robe, her dark hair half-styled, looking exactly like the bride I'd once imagined being. Her eyes met mine in the mirror, and for a split second, I caught something there. Guilt, maybe? It vanished so quickly I might have imagined it. "Lexi, finally." She turned, arms outstretched, as if we were still the same friends who had once promised to be each other's maids of honor. "The flowers are all wrong. Can you handle it?" I forced a smile. "Already on it." "You're a lifesaver." She squeezed my arm. "I knew I could count on you." The casual confidence in her voice made my stomach turn. Of course she could count on me. That's what made her betrayal so perfect. She knew I'd never let her down, even after she'd shattered my world. "How's Stefan?" I asked, unable to help myself. Her expression softened. "Nervous. You know how he gets." I did know. I knew how he hummed when he was anxious, how he always loosened his tie when he felt trapped, how his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled genuinely. I knew because for 3 years I'd thought he was going to be my husband, until he disappeared 6 months before our wedding. No explanation, no goodbye, just gone. And then 4 months later, the announcement: Hallie and Stefan were engaged. "I should check on the flowers," I said, backing toward the door. "Wait." Hallie called me back. "I wanted to thank you again for doing this. I know it's complicated." Complicated. As if that word could possibly contain the magnitude of her betrayal. "It's fine," I lied. "What are friends for?" I escaped before she could respond and leaned against the hallway wall, drawing in a shaky breath. I could do this. I had to do this. My phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. "Did you really think you'd be on the guest list? Some best friend you must have been." I stared at the screen, my heart hammering. Who would send this? I scrolled through the wedding party list in my mind, trying to identify who might know about my history with the couple. Before I could process it, another text came through. "Check the groom's jacket pocket, left side. You'll find something interesting. I glanced down the hallway toward the groom's suite. Stefan was in there, probably adjusting his cufflinks in that meticulous way he had. The man who'd vanished from my life without explanation. The man who'd moved on to my best friend without remorse. The man who still had no idea what I'd discovered about him and Hallie. My phone buzzed again. Don't you want to know why he really left you? My hands trembled as I tucked my phone away. The florist crisis could wait. I had a different emergency to attend to now, one that might finally give me the answers I'd been denied for over a year. And if what I suspected was true, this wedding was about to become memorable for all the wrong reasons. I stood outside the groom's suite, my heart hammering against my ribs. The door was ajar, voices drifting out. Stefan wasn't alone. I pressed myself against the wall, straining to listen. You're sure she doesn't suspect anything? A male voice I didn't recognize. Lexi? Stefan's laugh was dismissive in a way I'd never heard before. She's too busy playing wedding coordinator to notice what's really going on. My fingers curled into fists, nails digging into my palms. The physical pain was almost a relief compared to the ache spreading through my chest. And Hallie's cool with her being here? The other voice asked. It was Hallie's idea, Stefan replied. Said it would be poetic justice or something. Women, right? Their laughter faded as they moved deeper into the room. I waited until I heard the bathroom door close and water running before I slipped inside. The suite was a mirror image of the bridal room. Plush furniture, champagne on ice, garment bags hanging from a rack. Stefan's tuxedo jacket was draped over a chair, carelessly tossed aside like so many promises. I glanced at the bathroom door. The shower was running now. I had minutes, maybe seconds, maybe... My hands trembled as I reached for his jacket. Left pocket, the text had said. I slid my fingers in, feeling nothing but fabric. Then my fingertips brushed against something in the inner breast pocket instead. A small velvet box. A ring box. My stomach dropped. Was this some sick joke? Another engagement ring when he was hours from marrying my best friend? I flipped it open, expecting a diamond. Instead, I found a simple gold band with an inscription inside. Forever yours, H. Not a new engagement ring. A wedding band. But the inscription, it wasn't new. The gold showed signs of wear, tiny scratches along the edges. This wasn't something he'd just purchased. The water shut off abruptly. I snapped the box closed and shoved it back in the pocket, my mind racing. I needed to get out, now. I slipped out just as the bathroom door opened, ducking behind a large floral arrangement in the hallway. My phone buzzed again. Now you know. They've been together longer than you think. I stared at the message, pieces clicking into place. The mysterious business trips. The weekends when Hallie was visiting her sister. The way they'd announced their engagement so quickly after Stefan left me. This wasn't a whirlwind romance born after our breakup. This was an affair that had been going on right under my nose. Lexi, what are you doing up here? Nicole's voice made me jump. The florist is downstairs having a meltdown about the centerpieces. I forced my features into what I hoped was a neutral expression. Just checking on the groom's party, making sure everything's on schedule. Nicole raised an eyebrow but didn't push. Well, when you're done stalking your ex, we have actual fires to put out downstairs. I'm not stalking. I stopped myself. Nicole didn't know my history with Stefan and Hallie. To her, I was just another wedding coordinator. I'll be right down. As I followed her downstairs, my mind raced with implications. That ring wasn't new. How long had they been together behind my back? Months? Years? The florist crisis was real but manageable. White peonies instead of blush garden roses. I handled it on autopilot, my thoughts elsewhere. Each smile I forced felt like it might crack my face. Each no problem I uttered was a lie. I was arranging the seating chart when I felt someone watching me. I looked up to find Stefan standing in the doorway, his groomsman laughing behind him. Lexi, he said, his voice softer than it had been upstairs. Can we talk? Alone? The groomsmen exchanged glances, clearly aware of who I was. How much did they know? How long had I been the punchline of their jokes? I'm working, I replied, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. Please. 5 minutes. I set down my clipboard. Fine, 5 minutes. We stepped into a small alcove off the main hall, close enough to hear the bustle of wedding preparations, far enough that no one would overhear us. I just wanted to say thank you, he began, for doing this, for Hallie. Not for you? I couldn't help myself. His eyes, those warm brown eyes I'd once thought I'd wake up to for the rest of my life, couldn't meet mine. I know how this looks. Do you? I asked. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like my fiancé and my best friend were having an affair behind my back, and now I'm coordinating their wedding. He flinched. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Stefan? Enlighten me. Things between us weren't working. So you discuss it with me, I hissed, keeping my voice low. You don't disappear and then pop up engaged to my best friend. His jaw tightened. I handled it badly. I know that. How long? I asked, the question that had been burning inside me since I saw that worn gold band. What? How long were you two together before you left me? Something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe, or fear. Lexi, today isn't the day. How long? Each word was a bullet. 8 months, he finally admitted. 8 months, while I was picking out wedding venues, while Hallie was helping me choose my dress, while we were all having dinner together, laughing, planning our futures. I have to get back to work, I said, my voice hollow. Your bride is waiting. As I turned to leave, he caught my wrist. Lexi, wait. There's something you should know about Hallie. Save it. I pulled my arm away. I'm just the wedding coordinator, remember? Your relationship drama isn't my concern anymore. I walked away, my legs somehow supporting me despite feeling like they might dissolve beneath me. In my pocket, my phone buzzed again. Ready for the next revelation? Check Hallie's wedding planner, the one with the pink cover. Page 43. I didn't know who was sending these messages, but they were leading me down a rabbit hole I couldn't turn away from. And page 43 was about to show me how deep this betrayal really went. Hallie's wedding planner was in her bridal suite, the same pink leather-bound book she'd carried everywhere since getting engaged. I remembered teasing her about it months ago, back when I still thought we were friends. Back when I didn't know she'd been sleeping with my fiancé for 8 months while helping me plan my own wedding to him. I needed a reason to go back upstairs. The champagne. I grabbed a fresh bottle from the catering supply and headed up, rehearsing excuses in my head. The bridal suite was empty when I arrived. Hallie was probably getting her photos taken in the garden. Perfect. I set down the champagne and scanned the room. The planner sat on the vanity, surrounded by makeup brushes and hairspray. My hands shook as I flipped to page 43. It was a budget page, columns of numbers and notes in Hallie's looping handwriting. Nothing seemed unusual until I noticed an entry labeled insurance policy with a payment of $5,000 to someone named Truman. Truman, the wedding DJ? I checked the vendor list in my coordinator binder. Truman Hunter was indeed listed as tonight's entertainment. What kind of insurance policy costs $5,000 and involves the DJ? I snapped a photo of the page with my phone just as voices approached in the hallway. I quickly closed the planner and busied myself arranging the champagne glasses. Just need a minute to freshen up, Hallie was saying as she entered. She stopped short when she saw me. Lexi, what are you doing here? I held up the champagne bottle. Thought you might need a refill before the ceremony. Her eyes narrowed slightly, then softened into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Always so thoughtful. The bridesmaids filed in behind her, a flutter of pastel dresses and nervous energy. I recognized most of them. Women who'd once been my friends, too. They avoided looking directly at me. Everything's on schedule, I said professionally. Ceremony starts in 40 minutes. Perfect. Hallie sat at the vanity, directly in front of her planner. Oh, did you talk to Stefan? He mentioned he was looking for you. The casual way she said his name, my ex-fiancé, her soon-to-be husband, made my stomach clench. Briefly. Good. She smiled at me in the mirror. I'm so glad we can all be adults about this. The bridesmaids exchanged uncomfortable glances. They knew. Everyone knew what had happened except me, apparently. Of course, I replied, matching her tone. What are friends for? As I turned to leave, Hallie called after me. Lexi, can you make sure the DJ has the correct version of our first dance song? It's At Last by Etta James, but the remastered recording, not the original. The DJ, Truman, the insurance policy. I'll handle it personally, I promised. I found Truman setting up in the ballroom, a tall man with a closely cropped beard and headphones around his neck. He looked up as I approached. You must be Lexi, he said before I could introduce myself, the coordinator. Something in his tone made me pause. That's right, and you're Truman. In the flesh. He continued adjusting his equipment. What can I do for you? Just confirming the first dance song. At Last, the remastered version. Got it right here. He tapped his laptop. Anything else? I hesitated, then decided to take a risk. Actually, I was wondering about the insurance policy. His hands froze over the soundboard. Just for a second, but long enough to confirm my suspicion. Don't know what you're talking about. $5,000 is a lot for a wedding DJ, I said quietly, even one providing extra services. Truman straightened, looking at me properly for the first time. Look, I'm just here to play music. Whatever you think you know. I don't know anything, I interrupted. Yet, but I'd like to. He glanced around to make sure we were alone. This isn't a conversation we should have here. Then where? Meet me by the service entrance in 20 minutes. He turned back to his equipment, effectively dismissing me. I walked away, my mind racing. What had I stumbled into? Whatever insurance policy Hallie had purchased from Truman, it wasn't about music. I was checking the ceremony site when Nicole appeared beside me. Everything okay? She asked. You seem distracted. I'm fine, I lied. Bullshit. She folded her arms. I've worked with you on 3 events, Lexi. You're the most focused person I know. Today, you're all over the place. I hesitated. I barely knew Nicole, but I desperately needed someone to talk to. The bride and groom, I said finally. They were together while he was engaged to me. Nicole's eyes widened. Holy shit. And you're still working their wedding? That's either incredibly professional or completely insane. Probably both. I attempted a smile that felt more like a grimace. Why put yourself through this? She asked. I thought about the mysterious texts, the worn wedding band, the insurance policy. I need answers. Nicole studied me for a moment. Whatever you're planning, be careful. Revenge has a way of backfiring. I'm not planning anything, I said automatically. Right. She clearly didn't believe me. Well, if you need backup, let me know. I've always had a soft spot for righteous vengeance. I stared at her, surprised. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. Let's just say I've been where you are. Something dark flashed in her eyes, and I wish someone had been in my corner. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with another text. Don't trust Truman, he's working both sides. Check the garden shed instead, east side of the property. Go now. I looked up at Nicole, a decision crystallizing in my mind. Actually, there is something you could help me with. Name it. Cover for me for 15 minutes, I need to check something in the garden. Nicole nodded. Go, I've got this. As I slipped away toward the garden, I realized I'd just gained something unexpected in this mess. An ally. And maybe, just maybe, I was about to discover what Hallie and Stefan were really hiding. The garden shed was tucked behind a row of meticulously trimmed hedges, almost invisible unless you knew to look for it. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see Truman following me, but the path behind me was empty. The only sounds were distant laughter from the cocktail hour and the soft crunch of gravel beneath my feet. The shed door was unlocked. I hesitated, suddenly aware of how crazy this was, sneaking around a wedding venue, following anonymous text messages, hunting for evidence of... what exactly? I didn't even know what I was looking for anymore, but I'd come too far to turn back now. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The air was musty, thick with the smell of soil and fertilizer. Light filtered through a small, dirty window, illuminating shelves of gardening tools and supplies. Nothing seemed out of place or suspicious. Until I noticed a laptop sitting on a workbench in the corner. It was open, but in sleep mode. I tapped the spacebar, and the screen flickered to life. No password prompt. Whoever had left it here hadn't expected anyone to find it. The screen showed a video editing program. Several files were organized in a project folder labeled H&S Wedding. I clicked on one titled Final Cut. The video began to play. It was footage of Stefan in what looked like a hotel room, sitting on the edge of a bed. He was talking to someone off camera, looking nervous. "I can't do this anymore," he was saying. "The lying, the sneaking around, it's killing me." A woman's voice responded, Hallie's voice. "It's just a few more weeks. Once the money clears, we can tell her everything." My heart hammered against my ribs. Tell who everything? Me? And what if she finds out before then? Stefan ran his hands through his hair, his nervous tell. What if she already knows? She doesn't, Hallie sounded confident. Lexi trusts me completely. That's why this works. I felt sick. They were talking about me, about deceiving me, but what money were they waiting for? The video continued, showing more conversations between them, always in hotel rooms, always discussing some plan. In one clip, Stefan held up papers, what looked like bank statements. 300,000, he said, sounding incredulous. All from her family trust, and she has no idea. The room seemed to tilt around me, my family trust, the money my grandparents had left me, which I'd given Stefan access to when we got engaged. The money that had mysteriously underperformed, according to the statements he'd shown me. He hadn't lost my inheritance in bad investments. He'd stolen it, with Hallie's help. The last video in the sequence showed them in bed together, champagne glasses in hand, toasting to freedom. The timestamp showed a date 3 weeks before Stefan disappeared from my life. I was so absorbed in the footage that I didn't hear the shed door open. "I see you found my insurance policy." I whirled around to find Truman standing in the doorway, blocking my exit. "You recorded them," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. "Why?" He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "Same reason anyone creates an insurance policy. Protection." "Against what?" "Against people who might try to screw me over." He nodded toward the laptop. "Like those two." "I don't understand." Truman sighed, leaning against a shelf. "Stefan hired me 6 months ago to scrub some financial records. Said his fiancé's family was after him for mismanaging funds. I didn't ask questions, the money was good." "But that wasn't true," I said. "Figured that out when I saw what I was actually erasing. He wasn't protecting himself from your family. He was hiding the transfers he'd been making to offshore accounts." Truman shrugged. "So I kept copies. Started recording their meetings too, just in case. And now Hallie's paying you to keep quiet. $5,000 a month for the past year." He smiled without humor. "Until she decided it was getting too expensive. Said after the wedding they'd be moving abroad, somewhere without extradition." The pieces clicked into place. The wedding is their cover story. They're running away together, with my money. "Bingo," Truman nodded. "And I'm supposed to accidentally delete all my evidence after getting my final payment tonight. So why tell me? Why lead me here?" His expression hardened. "Because they're planning to pin everything on me if things go south. I heard them discussing it last week. I'm their fall guy." I processed this, my mind racing. "Those texts, they were from you?" "Had to be careful. Didn't know if I could trust you." He gestured to the laptop. "Now you know everything. Question is, what are you going to do about it?" Before I could answer, the shed door burst open again. Nicole stood there, breathless. "There you are! I've been looking everywhere!" She stopped, taking in the scene. "What's going on?" "Show her," I told Truman. He hesitated, then nodded, turning the laptop so Nicole could see. I watched her expression change as she viewed snippets of the footage. Shock, then disgust, then anger. "Those manipulative bastards," she whispered when it was over. "They stole my inheritance," I said, the words feeling strange in my mouth. $300,000, and they're planning to disappear after the wedding. Nicole's eyes met mine. "What do you want to do?" It was the second time someone had asked me that question in the past 5 minutes. This time I had an answer. "I want justice. My voice was calm, determined, and I know exactly how to get it. The ceremony starts in 30 minutes, Nicole warned. Perfect. I turned to Truman. I need a copy of those videos, and I need your help with the sound system during the reception. He raised an eyebrow. What are you planning? Something poetic. I felt a cold clarity settling over me. They used my trust against me. Now I'm going to use their wedding against them. As we left the shed, my phone buzzed with a message from Hallie. Where are you? Ceremony about to start. Need you now. I typed back, on my way, don't worry, everything's going exactly according to plan. Just not her plan, mine. The ceremony was picture perfect. Hallie glided down the aisle in her custom gown, beaming at Stefan like he was her salvation instead of her partner in crime. Guests dabbed at their eyes, moved by the romance of it all. If only they knew what I now did. I stood at the back, clipboard in hand, the perfect professional. Inside, I was ice and fire, calculating each step of what would come next while rage simmered beneath the surface. Nicole positioned herself near the main entrance, occasionally catching my eye with subtle nods. Truman had disappeared to prepare our technical arrangements for the reception. When Hallie and Stefan sealed their vows with a kiss, I felt nothing. The woman I'd once called my best friend and the man I'd planned to marry were now legally bound to each other, and I was about to bind them to their crimes. As guests moved to the cocktail hour, I slipped away to the bridal suite. I needed 5 minutes alone to steady myself. I hadn't expected to find Fatima waiting for me. There you are, she said, rising from the small love seat. I've been looking everywhere for you. Fatima, what are you doing here? I hadn't seen her arrive. I couldn't let you go through this alone. She crossed the room and hugged me tightly. This is insane, Lexi. You need to leave this toxic situation. I pulled back. I can't. Not yet. Why not? What could possibly be worth torturing yourself like this? I hesitated. Fatima had been telling me for months to let go, move on. Would she understand what I'd discovered? What I planned to do? They stole from me, I said finally. Not just Stefan and my trust, not just Hallie and our friendship. They literally stole my inheritance, $300,000. Fatima's eyes widened. What? How? I explained everything. The videos, the offshore accounts, their plan to disappear after the wedding. With each detail, her expression shifted from shock to outrage. Those manipulative, thieving... She stopped herself. What are you going to do? Expose them tonight, during the reception. She studied my face. And then what? What do you mean? After you expose them, after you get your revenge, what then? Her voice softened. Will it heal you, Lexi? Will it give you back the last year of your life? I hadn't thought that far ahead. My focus had been so narrow. Gather evidence, create a plan, execute. The after seemed irrelevant. I don't know, I admitted. But they can't just get away with this. No, they can't, she agreed. But there's a difference between justice and revenge. One heals, the other... She trailed off. I need to do this, I insisted. Fatima sighed. Then I'll be there, whatever happens. A knock at the door interrupted us. Nicole poked her head in. Sorry to intrude, but we have a situation. Stefan is looking for you, Lexi. Seems urgent. My stomach tightened. Did he say why? No, but he seemed nervous. He's waiting in the library. I glanced at Fatima, who squeezed my hand. Be careful. The library was a small, wood-paneled room off the main hall. Stefan stood by the window, silhouetted against the fading afternoon light. He turned when I entered. You found it, didn't you? No preamble, no pretense. I kept my expression neutral. Found what? Don't play dumb, Lexi. It doesn't suit you. He ran a hand through his hair. Truman's footage, the financial records. So he knew. Somehow, he knew. How did you figure it out? I asked, not bothering to deny it. Truman's been acting strange all day. Then I saw you two talking and you disappeared together. He stepped closer. What are you planning to do? What do you think I'm going to do, Stefan? You stole my inheritance. You and my best friend conspired behind my back for months. You're planning to flee the country tonight. He flinched at the accuracy of my accusations. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. Oh, how was it supposed to happen? We were going to pay you back. Once we were settled, once the investments matured. Stop lying. My voice cut through his excuses. You never intended to pay me back. You thought I'd never find out. He was quiet for a moment. What do you want? Money? I can get you some of it back. Not all, but... I don't want your blood money, I interrupted. I want justice. By humiliating Hallie on our wedding day? How is that justice? It's a start. Stefan moved suddenly, grabbing my wrist. I can't let you do this. Let go of me. My voice was deadly calm. Not until you listen. There are things you don't understand. Things about Hallie. I understand perfectly. You're both thieves and liars. She'll destroy you if you try this, he hissed. You have no idea what she's capable of. Something in his tone made me pause. Fear. Not of exposure, but of Hallie herself. What are you talking about? Before he could answer, the door opened. Hallie stood there in her wedding gown, a vision in white. Her smile was radiant, but her eyes were cold as they moved from Stefan's hand on my wrist to my face. There you are, darling. Everyone's looking for you. Her voice was honey over steel. The photographer wants some sunset shots? Stefan released me immediately, like a guilty child caught misbehaving. Of course. I was just thanking Lexi for all her hard work today. Hallie's gaze lingered on me. How thoughtful. Though I'm sure Lexi has duties to attend to rather than private conversations with my husband. The emphasis on my husband was subtle but unmistakable. Actually, I said, finding my voice, Stefan was just expressing some concerns about the reception timeline. Was he? Her smile didn't waver. Well, I'm sure you've handled it perfectly, as always. You're nothing if not thorough. The threat in her words was clear only to the three of us. The first dance is scheduled for 8, I said professionally, right after dinner. Perfect. Hallie looped her arm through Stefan's. We'll be ready for our moment in the spotlight. As they left, Stefan glanced back at me, his expression unreadable. Was it a warning? A plea? I couldn't tell. What I did know was that whatever Stefan had been about to tell me about Hallie had frightened him. And now I had to decide, proceed with my plan as intended, or recalibrate based on this new, unsettling dynamic I'd glimpsed between them. The reception was starting. Guests were being seated. And somewhere in the building, Truman was preparing the technical aspects of my revenge. I had minutes to decide whether to pull the trigger or change course entirely. The reception hall glittered with fairy lights and floral arrangements, a perfect backdrop for the perfect couple's perfect day. I moved between tables, checking place cards and centerpieces, the model of efficiency. No one would guess the storm raging inside me. Nicole appeared at my elbow, champagne flute in hand. For appearances, she murmured, passing it to me. You look like you need it. I took a small sip, grateful for the burn in my throat. Stefan knows. What? How? He confronted me in the library. He knows we found the footage. Nicole's eyes widened. Does he know about tonight? He suspects something. I glanced across the room where Stefan and Hallie were greeting guests, their smiles never faltering. But there's something else. Something about Hallie that has him scared. Scared how? I don't know. He tried to warn me, but she interrupted before he could explain. Nicole followed my gaze to the happy couple. So, what's the plan? Still going ahead? The question hung between us. My carefully constructed revenge was primed and ready. Truman had loaded the incriminating videos onto the reception slideshow, set to play during the couple's first dance. One button push, and their perfect facade would shatter in front of everyone they knew. But Stefan's fear nagged at me. What was I missing? I need to talk to Truman, I decided. Where is he? DJ booth. But hurry, dinner's almost over. I made my way to the back of the hall where Truman was adjusting equipment behind his booth. He looked up as I approached. Everything's set, he said before I could speak. Videos will play right after their first dance starts. Remote trigger is under the booth if you want to do the honors. Wait, I said. I need to know something first. In all your surveillance, did you ever see Hallie threaten Stefan? Did she have leverage over him somehow? Truman's expression shifted subtly. Why do you ask? Something Stefan said. He seemed afraid of her. Truman hesitated, then reached for his laptop. There was one conversation I didn't include in what I showed you. Didn't seem relevant to the money situation. He pulled up a video file and turned the screen toward me. It showed Hallie and Stefan in what looked like a heated argument. I don't care if you're having second thoughts, Hallie was saying, her voice ice cold. We're too far in to back out now. This isn't what I signed up for, Stefan replied. The money, fine. But I never agreed to... To what? Say it. Hallie stepped closer to him. You never agreed to what exactly? Stefan seemed to shrink before her. You know what? If you back out now, I'll make sure everyone knows what really happened to your brother. Hallie's voice was barely above a whisper. How you were driving that night, how you left the scene, how you let him take the blame even after he died. My breath caught. Stefan's younger brother had died in a car accident 2 years ago. The official story was that he'd been driving drunk and crashed. Stefan had been devastated. You wouldn't, Stefan said in the video. Try me. Hallie's smile was chilling. Now pull yourself together. We have a wedding to plan. The video ended, leaving me stunned. This wasn't just about money. This was blackmail. When was this recorded? I asked. About 2 months before your breakup, Truman said. There were other conversations like this. She has something on him, something big enough to keep him in line. I felt sick. The Stefan I'd known, or thought I'd known, would never have left his brother to die. But if it was true... Does this change your plan? Truman asked. Before I could answer, the MC's voice boomed through the speakers, announcing dinner was concluding, and the first dance would begin shortly. I don't know, I admitted. This complicates things. How? They still stole your money. They still betrayed you. Yes, but... I stopped, uncertain how to articulate the shift I was feeling. Fatima appeared beside us, slightly breathless. There you are. Hallie's looking for you. Something about the cake-cutting schedule. I'll be right there. Lexi, Fatima's voice dropped. Whatever you're planning, do it because it's right, not because you're hurt. She squeezed my arm and disappeared back into the crowd. I turned back to Truman. Give me a few minutes. I need to talk to Hallie first. You're going to warn her? He looked incredulous. No, I'm going to give her one chance to explain, to make this right. That's a mistake, he warned. She'll manipulate you like she does everyone else. Maybe. I straightened my shoulders. But I need to look her in the eye before I destroy her life. I found Hallie in a small anteroom, adjusting her veil before the first dance. She was alone, a rare moment without her entourage. There you are, she said, seeing me in the mirror. Is it time? Almost. I closed the door behind me. We need to talk first. She turned, her expression curious. About what? About the $300,000 you and Stefan stole from me. The change was instantaneous. Her smile vanished, replaced by something cold and calculating. She didn't bother denying it. So you know, she sighed, as if I'd discovered a minor inconvenience rather than a felony. I wondered if you'd figure it out. Why, Hallie? I thought we were friends. Best friends. We were, she shrugged. But friendship doesn't pay for the life I want. And blackmailing Stefan about his brother's death? Was that just business too? That got a reaction, a flicker of surprise before her mask returned. You have been busy, Truman, I assume? I knew he couldn't be trusted. Did Stefan really leave his brother to die? I needed to know. Does it matter? She stepped closer. What matters is what happens next. What do you want, Lexi? Money? I can write you a check right now. I want the truth, all of it. Before I decide what happens during your first dance. Understanding dawned in her eyes. You've planned something. She laughed, a sound devoid of humor. Of course you have, always so thorough. She reached for her clutch and pulled out her phone. Before you do anything rash, you should see this. She tapped the screen and handed it to me. It was a video of me entering the garden shed earlier today, followed by footage of me and Truman discussing our plan for the reception. I had my own insurance policy, Hallie said softly. Did you really think I wouldn't be watching you, that I'd leave anything to chance? My stomach dropped. What do you want? Walk away, right now. Leave the wedding. Delete whatever evidence you think you have, and never contact either of us again. Her voice hardened. Or I release this to everyone, showing how the pathetic, jilted ex-fiancé tried to ruin our wedding out of spite. That's not what happened, and you know it. It's what everyone will believe. She took back her phone. You have until the first dance to decide. Choose wisely. The door opened and Stefan appeared. They're waiting for us, he said, his eyes darting between Hallie and me. Perfect timing, Hallie smiled, all warmth and joy again. Lexi and I were just finishing up. As they left, Stefan caught my eye, his expression a silent plea I couldn't decipher. I stood alone in the anteroom, the walls closing in. Hallie had outplayed me again. Or had she? Maybe there was still a way to expose the truth without destroying myself in the process. The music for the first dance began to swell. I had seconds to decide. The first dance had begun. Hallie and Stefan swayed in the center of the ballroom, bathed in soft spotlight as Etta James's voice filled the air. Guests circled them, phones raised to capture the perfect moment. I stood at the edge of the crowd, the remote trigger heavy in my palm. Hallie caught my eye over Stefan's shoulder and smiled, the smile of someone who believed they'd won. Maybe she had. Her counter-blackmail was clean, simple, and devastating. If I exposed them, she'd destroy what remained of my reputation. But something about her confidence didn't sit right. She'd been too quick to show her hand, too eager to neutralize me, almost as if she feared what I might do. Nicole appeared beside me. What's happening? Truman says you're having second thoughts. Hallie has footage of us planning this, I whispered. She's threatening to release it if I go through with it. Shit! Nicole glanced at the dancing couple. So we're backing off? I watched Stefan's face as he danced with his bride. He looked hollow, going through the motions. A man trapped. No, I decided. We're changing tactics. I handed Nicole the remote trigger. Find Fatima. Tell her to be ready by the main exit in 5 minutes. What are you going to do? Something I should have done from the beginning. Tell the truth. Before she could respond, I walked directly toward the dance floor. Guests parted, perhaps sensing my determination. I tapped the groom on the shoulder, interrupting the perfect first dance. May I cut in? I asked, my voice carrying in the sudden hush. Stefan froze. Hallie's eyes widened in alarm. Lexi, don't, she started. It's tradition, isn't it? I continued, my voice steady. For the maid of honor to dance with the groom? Confusion rippled through the crowd. I wasn't the maid of honor. I wasn't even a bridesmaid. Of course, Stefan said finally, releasing Hallie. One dance. Hallie grabbed his arm. Stefan, no. But it was too late. The guests were watching, murmuring. Any protest would seem strange, suspicious. Just one dance, I assured her, my smile mirroring the one she'd given me earlier. What harm could it do? Stefan took my hand, and we began to dance as Hallie retreated to the edge of the circle, her perfect composure finally cracking. What are you doing? Stefan whispered as we moved across the floor. Getting answers, I replied. Did you kill your brother? His step faltered. What? No? Is that what she told you? She said you were driving the night he died, that you let him take the blame. Pain flashed across his face. I wasn't driving. But I was there. I was supposed to be the designated driver, but I'd been drinking too. When the accident happened, I panicked and ran. By the time I came back with help, he was gone. So she's blackmailing you with the truth that you abandoned him? That, and she fabricated evidence that I was driving. Doctored photos, fake witness statements, enough to convince the police to reopen the case if she released it. The pieces clicked into place. That's why you disappeared. Why you went along with stealing my money. She had you cornered. I'm not innocent, Lexi, his voice cracked. I was a coward that night, and I've been a coward ever since. I let her manipulate me into betraying you, into marrying her. I deserve whatever comes next. The song was ending. I had seconds to decide. Do you have access to the offshore accounts? I asked. Yes, joint access. The money's still there, most of it. And if I expose everything tonight? She'll destroy us both. His eyes met mine. But maybe that's what I deserve. The final notes of the song faded. Applause broke out around us. I stepped back from Stefan, my decision made. Thank you for the dance, I said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. Then quieter, I'm sorry about your brother. I walked directly to the DJ booth where Truman waited, Hallie's eyes burning into my back. Nicole and Fatima had positioned themselves by the exits as instructed. Change of plans, I told Truman. Do you have a microphone? He handed me one, confusion evident on his face. What about the videos? Not yet. I took a deep breath. I need to say something first. I stepped onto the small platform beside his booth. The microphone feedback cut through the chatter, and the room fell silent. I'd like to make a toast, I announced. Hallie was pushing through the crowd toward me, panic in her eyes. Too late. For those who don't know me, my name is Lexi. I was supposed to marry Stefan last year. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Instead, I'm here tonight as the wedding coordinator for his marriage to my former best friend. The room was utterly silent now, every eye on me. I wanted to share a story about friendship and trust. My voice was clear, steady. About how Hallie helped me plan my wedding to Stefan, all while they were having an affair behind my back. Gasps and whispers erupted. Hallie had reached the edge of the platform, her face contorted with rage. But that's not even the most interesting part of their love story, I continued. The most interesting part is how they stole $300,000 from my inheritance, how they planned to flee the country tonight with my money, and how Hallie blackmailed Stefan into going along with it by threatening to frame him for his brother's death. The room exploded in shocked exclamations. Stefan stood motionless in the center of the dance floor, his face unreadable. Lies! Hallie screamed, lunging for the microphone. She's delusional, obsessed with my husband. Am I? I stepped back, nodding to Truman. Then perhaps we should let everyone see the evidence. The lights dimmed, the projector screen descended, and there, in high definition for all their guests to see, was Hallie in a hotel room, counting cash and laughing about how easy it had been to manipulate me. 300,000, her voice echoed through the speakers, and the stupid bitch has no idea. What followed was a carefully edited montage. Hallie and Stefan discussing their plan to steal my money, their scheme to disappear after the wedding, and finally Hallie's blackmail about Stefan's brother. When the lights came back up, the room was in chaos. Some guests were leaving in disgust. Others were filming on their phones. In the corner, I spotted two of Stefan's relatives who worked in law enforcement, their expressions grim as they approached the couple. Hallie turned to me, her beautiful face twisted with hatred. You think you've won? I'll destroy you for this. I held up my phone, showing her the screen. It was recording. More evidence? I asked quietly. Or should I play the video where you just threatened me again? For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. It's over, Hallie, I said. The truth is out. All of it. As security began escorting her away from me, she made one last desperate lunge, knocking a champagne tower to the floor in a spectacular crash of glass and liquid. In the chaos that followed, I felt a hand on my arm. Fatima. Time to go, she said gently. You've done what you came to do. As we walked toward the exit, Stefan called my name. I turned to see him standing alone amid the wreckage of his wedding, looking lost. I'm sorry, he said simply. I nodded once, acknowledging but not absolving. Then I walked away, leaving behind the shattered remains of what had once been the most important relationships in my life. Outside in the cool night air, surrounded by Nicole and Fatima, I finally let myself breathe. The weight I'd carried for so long began to lift. Not completely, some burdens leave permanent marks, but enough to feel like I could move forward. What now? Nicole asked. I looked up at the stars, bright and clear above us. Now I start over. The police station hummed with fluorescent lights and hushed conversations. I sat on an uncomfortable plastic chair, my event coordinator outfit wrinkled from the night's chaos. It was nearly 3 a.m., but sleep felt impossible. Ms. Tucker? A detective approached, notepad in hand. We're almost finished with your statement, just a few more questions. I nodded, exhaustion seeping into my bones. For hours, I'd recounted every detail, the stolen inheritance, the blackmail, the elaborate wedding scheme. The detective had listened with professional detachment, occasionally asking for clarification. The offshore accounts Mr. Webb mentioned, she said. Do you have any documentation of those? Truman has copies of everything, I replied. He's been cooperating with your colleagues. She made a note. And you're certain you want to press charges? Against both of them? The question hung in the air. Despite everything, some small part of me hesitated. These were people I had once loved deeply. Yes, I said finally. I'm certain, she nodded. We'll be in touch. You're free to go for now. Outside, dawn was breaking over the city. Fatima waited in her car, head resting against the window. She startled awake when I opened the passenger door. Hey, she said, blinking sleep from her eyes. How did it go? As well as could be expected. I buckled my seatbelt. They're both in custody. Hallie for fraud and blackmail, Stefan as an accessory. Good, she squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you. We drove in silence through the empty streets. Not toward my apartment, I realized, but toward the beach. Why are we going to the shore? I asked. Because you need it. Fatima glanced at me. Some things can only be processed with your toes in the sand. The beach was deserted at this hour, the tide low and retreating. We kicked off our shoes and walked along the wet sand, the cold water occasionally lapping at our ankles. The horizon was a watercolor of pinks and oranges, beautiful in its impermanence. I keep thinking about what happens next, I said, breaking our silence. The trial, the publicity, everyone knowing what happened. Are you worried about that? I considered the question. Strangely, no. I spent so long hiding the truth, from others, from myself. There's something freeing about everything being in the open. And the money? The detective thinks they can recover most of it. The accounts were frozen as soon as they were identified. I dug my toes into the wet sand. But honestly, I don't care as much about that as I thought I would. No, it's just money. What I really lost was trust, faith in my own judgment. I looked out at the horizon. That's harder to get back. Fatima nodded, but not impossible. We walked further down the beach, the rising sun warming our backs. A text message chimed on my phone. Nicole, checking in. I'd only known her a day, yet she'd stood beside me through everything. Some connections form in minutes that others can't build in years. You know what's strange? I said, typing a quick reply to Nicole. I keep waiting to feel vindicated, triumphant, but mostly I just feel sad. That makes sense, Fatima replied. You didn't just lose a fiancé and a friend. You lost your vision of the future, your trust in people. That's worth grieving. We reached a small tidal pool where tiny fish darted between rocks, life continuing in its small, determined way despite the changing tides. Royal, my therapist, once told me that healing isn't about erasing what happened, I said. It's about integrating it into your story in a way that doesn't define you. Wise words. I didn't understand them until now. I looked back at our footprints in the sand, already being erased by the incoming tide. I don't want this betrayal to be the thing that defines me. So what will define you instead? The question hung between us as we turned back toward the parking lot. What would define me now? Not victimhood, not revenge, not even justice. I think, I said slowly, I want to be defined by how I rebuild, by who I choose to trust and how I choose to love after knowing how much it can hurt. As we approached Fatima's car, I noticed a figure waiting nearby. Truman, looking as exhausted as I felt. The police finished with you? I asked as we reached him. He nodded. For now. They'll need us both for the trial. Thank you, I said, for everything. Don't thank me yet. He handed me a flash drive. There's something you should see, something I held back. I took it, wary. More evidence? A different kind. Watch it alone. His eyes were serious. It might change how you feel about everything. After Truman left, Fatima drove me home. I clutched the flash drive, curious and apprehensive. Want me to stay while you watch it? She asked as we pulled up to my apartment. I shook my head. I need to do this part alone. Inside, I plugged the drive into my laptop. A single video file appeared. I clicked play, bracing myself. It was Stefan, sitting alone in what looked like a hotel room, recording himself. Lexi, if you're watching this, it means everything has fallen apart. His voice was steady, but his eyes were red-rimmed. I recorded this as insurance, in case something happened to me, but also as a confession. He explained everything, how he'd discovered Hallie had been embezzling from my accounts months before he disappeared, how he'd confronted her and been ensnared in her blackmail scheme, how he'd agreed to the fake relationship to try to recover my money from inside. I failed you, he said simply. I thought I could outsmart her, protect you, and fix everything. Instead, I became part of the problem. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I never stopped loving you, even when I had to pretend I did. The video ended. I sat in silence, tears streaming down my face. Not for the relationship I'd lost, that was truly gone, but for the complexity of human weakness, for the ways fear can corrupt even love. I closed my laptop and walked to the window. The morning sun illuminated the city, people beginning their days unaware of how lives could shatter and reform overnight. My phone buzzed with a text from Nicole. Breakfast tomorrow? I know a place that serves healing in waffle form. I smiled through my tears and typed back, yes, I'd like that. Then I opened my contacts and scrolled to Royal's number. It was time to schedule a session, not to process my betrayal anymore, but to begin the harder, more important work of rebuilding trust, starting with myself. The flash drive sat on my desk, a small repository of complicated truths. I wouldn't delete it, but I wouldn't watch it again either. Some chapters need to be acknowledged but not revisited. I opened my bedroom window, letting in the fresh morning air. For the first time in over a year, I felt the weight of betrayal lifting, not gone, but transformed into something I could carry without being crushed. I was not defined by what they had done to me. I was defined by what I would do next, and I was ready to find out exactly what that would be.